Friday, May 31st, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Here on YouTube, we're going to be taking place in a best ball underdog draft. Let's get it going. All right, so here we are. As you may have noticed, I rearranged the camera a little bit. I feel like there's just so much better lighting coming from this direction where I previously had it. I wasn't really digging the lighting situation. So let me know what you think about this new look. I'll see how I like it. Maybe I'll go back, but yeah, a little bit of a change on the orientation of the video. But here we are on Underdog. If you don't know what it is, it's a best ball fantasy drafting gambling website, and there is a tournament we're going to be entering today that does have some high payouts. So this is Best Ball Mania 5, $25 entry. You can max it out up to 150 entries. I'm not going to do that many. Maybe some of you have higher disposable income budgets than I do, but I'm probably going to do like around 10, 12 of these. Probably not more than $300 is what I'm going to invest in this tournament. But the settings for it are technically, you obviously want to win first place, but you don't technically need to be the by far and away best team in the entire 672,000 player field in order to do that. What you need to do is you need to win your league that you're going to draft in. You're going to be part of a 12-team league. Top 2 is what you need to finish first 14 weeks. Then you move on to a 13-team group, and you need to finish at the top of that group. And then you move on to a 16-team group in week 16 of the NFL season. You need to finish number 1 in that group, and then you move on to a 539-seat final. If you do move on to that top 539, you are guaranteed 3,750. From there, the prizes just move up. If you finish top 50, so top 10% of that, 25K is what you're going to pocket. And if you do finish first, 1.5 million is the grand prize. So let's get into this. Let's take a shot. And just to remind you of the settings, it is half PPR, 6 points per receiving touchdown. That's pretty normal. Interceptions, though, only -1 point, not as punitive for interceptions. Everything else is pretty much the same. And the roster, as I've mentioned in these videos before, in case you're new, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, 10 bench spots, and 1 tight end. So a little bit more weighted to the wide receiver position, and you're going to see there's a lot more receivers that go off the board early on in this video. But let's hop in. If you'd like to join me, I do have the code listed below in the description in the chat, and you'll get a 50% match on your first deposit up to $250. But let's get in, let's join, and hopefully this fills quickly, but we'll find out soon enough how long it takes. Seven spots available in this draft. So if you would like to join us, it will fill up soon. It's already down to 5. And yeah, going to be fun. Hopefully we get a good team, get a good pick. That does play a big factor. Where you're drafting, at least for the first round, is a big deal. And then, you might be more likely to get some players falling to you in, at least as long as you're not on the bookends, one of your picks is not going to have to be a reach. I don't like the number 1 pick, to be completely honest with you. I'm not as big of a fan of who you're available to select at that 2-3 turn. And if you do go Christian McCaffrey at number 1, I don't like your wide receiver situation anywhere near as much as I would if I'm like pick 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 6. The ADP, I kind of prefer how it shakes out when you get a top end wide receiver instead of Christian McCaffrey. I think CMC is a little bit risky because you got to wait 22 picks coming back around to get your wide receiver one. And at that point, you're like praying for someone like Debo Samuel to still be available. So let's see what happens. This room is filled, and it looks like we're on the back end. We have pick 12. Okay, we have the bookend, and like I was saying, I think I prefer pick 12 just a little bit more than pick 1, honestly. And you can still get some good depth, but quarterback is going to be a little bit tricky. If we don't get one of the high end quarterbacks available at the 3-4 turn, sometimes you get kind of boxed out of the position where you don't get great value again until very late in the draft. That's one thing I have learned from drafting at pick 12. It's a little bit difficult at the quarterback position if you don't grab one early. So that's probably going to be our strategy. We're probably going to look for maybe Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts at pick 36, 37. And if not, we might have to hope for a guy like Anthony Richardson to fall to us at pick 60. Otherwise, it gets a little bit brutal. Also, when you're at the turn, the players that draft like right before you, like picks 9, 10, 11, they see your build and they kind of make some obvious assumptions as to where you're going to go. So it does help to not like tip your hand a little bit too much as like, oh, if you really need wide receiver later on, they're probably going to snipe you knowing that that's the position you're going to double tap most likely when it is your turn on the clock. So there is a little bit more strategy involved with pick 12 that is a little more nuanced than some of the other positions. Drafting at the turn has its advantages, but also has its downfalls. And hopefully we can get some good value. Like, I didn't do this on the live stream, but when I drafted my Golden, a different tournament here that was single entry, I got stuck with the 12 pick, and somehow Stephon Diggs fell to me at pick 36. I don't really know how that ended up happening. I've rarely ever seen Stephon Diggs fall past pick 30, and I was very happy for that to happen. Very rarely do you get a really good receiver like that at pick 36. That's usually going at like the 2-3 turn. Diggs, I think, has like an ADP of like 27, 28 right now. So I got him at 36, and I was very, very happy that that happened. But we are coming up on the clock. Everything's going mostly standard except for this Puka Nacua selection above Brees Hall. But that's the thing I was kind of mentioning about why CMC may not be the best pick at number 1, at least on Underdog, because you have to wait so long to get your wide receiver 1. Going running back in round 1 is a little bit punitive this season, just because of how many receivers get taken off the board in the first few rounds. But we may be in the situation where we're going to be taking the receiver in the thumbnail. That's probably a good luck charm. I'm probably going to be going Drake London. Do I go Jahmyr Gibbs over Marvin Harrison? That is the question. I think I will be going double wide receiver. I think the depth at running back is still going to be there for us, especially coming back around. I do love the Travis Etienne value, sometimes available in the 4th. And given how we're already a little bit behind the 8 ball, like we're drafting wide receiver 9 as our number 1 guy. We are getting 9 and 10 as our top 2. And I think we're still going to be able to get a top 10 running back at that 3-4 turn. So I'm going to pass on Jahmyr Gibbs. Definitely some upside with him, but he is, at the end of the day, in a committee, and maybe David Montgomery is still going to vulture some touchdowns from him. So there's definitely some upside with Jahmyr Gibbs, but I just don't want to get behind the 8 ball at receiver. So I'm going to go Drake London, Marvin Harrison. A lot of upside with Marv. Very few targets to compete with him in Arizona. And it does open us up for Kyler around pick 84, 85. And then Drake London obviously opens the door for Kirk Cousins, who's available around pick 132, 133 at that 11, 12 turn for us. So if we do get boxed out of quarterback, we have a few more options later on. But like I was mentioning, that's something that I think you should really keep in mind when you're drafting at pick 12, knowing that quarterback doesn't line up too well at this position if you're not going with it early on. If you're not taking an elite guy, then it's a little bit difficult to really get good value at that spot. So we're going to let the board fall to us. I don't like to be too rigid with my approach, but I did like almost 70 drafts before the NFL draft, like pre-draft. I did about 70, and then since the draft I've done about 50 of these drafts on Underdog. So I know a little bit. I'm not going to claim that I'm like the biggest expert on how the board falls. But I've done enough to feel like there are some trends I've picked up on. And whenever I'm at pick 12 and I don't take an early quarterback, sometimes I really regret it. So, following our Marvin Harrison selection, we see Jahmyr Gibbs, Nico Collins early on, a little bit of a unique build with Breece Hall, Nico Collins, Garrett Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Bijan, Chris Olave. I know people love Chris Olave, but I think he's one of the hardest clicks for me in the second round. I would love him at the end of the second round, but like top 20, I'm just not a believer in the Saints at all this year. And I know they're moving off of Michael Thomas, but I just don't trust Derek Carr to get him enough touchdowns to really pop in terms of the upside in best ball. I feel like Olave's more of a redraft pick, a little more of a safer floor. He's obviously going to go over 1,000 yards. I wouldn't be shocked to see him put up like 1,200, 1,100, 1,200, like he has. I think last year it was around 1,150. I could be wrong about that, but that feels right. But he's just not a massive touchdown producer, and I don't expect that to change with Derek Carr at quarterback. So we'll review some other teams, but we're about to be on the clock once again. And like I was mentioning, we're probably going to target quarterback. Most likely. Okay, so we kind of get boxed out of receiver a little bit. That's one good thing that of our approach to Drake London, Marvin Harrison. I could go Derrick Henry, but I don't think I'm going to do it. Allen is a quarterback that I don't think you have to have stacked. You're not going to be super upset if you don't. But that's who I'll take. We're going to go with Josh Allen. And like I was mentioning, I do like the value on ETN. But maybe Travis Kelce would be a better approach. We do have Marvin Harrison, so it's between these three. McBride would be a very unique build, but I'm gonna go with the veteran. I'm gonna go Travis Kelce. You know, I'm a Charger fan, and it's not easy for me to swallow that pill. But remember last year, Kelce was going in round 1. It's hard to imagine that this 4th round price is not worth it. So we would have had to reach on George Pickens, T. Higgins to take wide receiver. And running back is not really a premium in this draft so far. There's only one team that went with 2 of them. Team 11 did take Derrick Henry, so they have 2 running backs. But we have an elite quarterback. We have an elite tight end. We're not going to have to worry about these 2 positions for a long time. And that's going to allow us to really build up on a ton of depth at this position. So who knows, maybe we get a good value at running back falling to us soon enough. Like if Rachaad White is still on the board at pick 60, I'm definitely taking him. But I would have preferred to go Travis Etienne over Derrick Henry. We mentioned some other teams, and let's move on. Let's take a look at Team 6 with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, and Cooper Kupp. That's a pretty good start. Very good depth at receiver with those 3. Some like 30-point upside with Deebo. If Kupp can get back to what he once was. He has top five finish written all over him. That's definitely a possibility with Cup. So he's absolutely one of the better picks in round 3. And he was going in round 4 not too long ago. I'm not surprised at all to see his ADP move up the board, especially when you want to get like a more unique build. I've considered taking Cooper Cup as early as pick 25. I'm not afraid to do that. But they go Josh Jacobs, not bad. Team 5 started with Justin Jefferson, good value on Saquon, very good pick there. Michael Pittman, Christian Kirk, going a little more heavy at wide receiver in the early middle. It's usually where you get your like 3 wide receiver builds through the first 4 rounds and stuff. But then we see Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Malik Neighbors, really good value on Ayuk. I'd prefer Ayuk over Debo. I think Ayuk should probably be going, in terms of the wide receivers, right after Marvin Harrison. That's where I'm comfortable taking him. But get him at 21. That's great. Paired with Tyreek Hill. Jealous of that. And then Jalen Hurts falls to 45. Damn. That's a good team. Don't know if I love Malik Neighbors over some of these players that go after. Like, if this team knew they were going to get Jalen Hurts, they probably would have loved to have Devontae Smith on this squad, but can't complain. Team 3, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Laporta, T. Higgins. So they're a team vying for that Joe Burrow stack, most likely. CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, Dalton Kincaid. We're not going to get Kincaid in this team. I didn't expect it. Kincaid would have to fall almost a full round for us to get him at pick 60. But that's kind of the beauty of Josh Allen. You don't need him to be stacked for it to work out, and I'm not too upset about it. Didn't expect Kincaid coming back around. And we have Kelsey, so really not a big issue. Team 1 has CMC, Devon Achane. As long as they move off of wide receiver for a long time, then that can be justified. But this is what I was talking about, where it's kind of a problem to be at pick 1 and go with running back CMC. Like, yeah, even if Christian McCaffrey finishes as the running back 1, to have Jalen Waddle as your wide receiver 1 doesn't feel safe to me at all. I'm not a fan of that situation, especially if you go CMC in round 1. I think you have to double tap receiver at the turn. So who else would they have taken to make you feel better? Hard to argue for anyone in particular. This tier of receivers just so flat. But A-Chain is one of those players that can get you 40, 50 points, and you wouldn't be shocked in any given week. So it's a strategy. I'm not sure it's the one I want to employ, but it's not bad. It's just not my favorite. Okay, we're about to be on the clock. Stroud is falling. Lamar fell to 57 in this draft, and to the team that has Zay Flowers. Wow. Really nice for JS Midge at pick 9. Really nice. Okay, we love to see tight end off the board. We're definitely not taking tight end, but we could go Joe Mixon or Kenneth Walker. We do need a running back. And then I think I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy to pair up with Travis Kelce. Just a little more investment into that Chiefs offense. So Worthy is 100% on this team. And I'm pretty sure in week 16, we have the Chiefs versus Houston. Week 16 is pretty important for our advance rate to the championship round. So we're going to go with Joe Mixon, and we're going to get some correlation for week 16. If that Christmas Day game, oh no, it's a Saturday game, Houston at the Chiefs, turns into a shootout, then we're going to get some good touchdown production from our Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce combo, as well as Joe Mixon in the same game. So nice to see you reflect the sun. Yeah, we're back for more drafting. Right. Wow. How do they not take Kyron Williams at 28 instead of Neighbors? Yeah. I can't justify it personally. Um, let's pull up the board, get it back on the screen here. I know Kyron Williams has a bit of a foot injury, but I think Kyron Williams is still a smash pick in the second round. For him to fall to 32, I'm going to take him a ton if I can get him at that type of value. In round 3, Kyron Williams feels can't miss. But you wanted us to go Kenneth Walker because we needed running back. I see him in a similar tier to Joe Mixon. It's just that Kenneth Walker actually has a backup that scares me a little bit in Zach Charbonnet. So I do view Joe Mixon a little bit safer than I do Kenneth Walker. And especially with the logic that I was bringing up, that correlation of betting on the Week 16 matchup of Houston and Kansas City to be a shootout, that is where I addressed running back with Joe Mixon. Round 6, Mixon, Kenneth Walker, I think are great picks. Either one are fine. But for our build, I was a little more comfortable going Mixon. Kamara is kind of one of the last running backs I'm comfortable as my RB1, but even that is kind of pushing it. I think Walker is a bit of the cutoff point, but Mixon is definitely a player that I'm comfortable doing that with. Because let's pull up Joe Mixon's contract. We know that they traded for him this offseason. Last year he finished as I want to say top 5 running back in terms of total points. He stayed healthy. Oh, it looks like my battery just died. So bear with me while I change that. But yeah, in terms of contract, fully guaranteed 13 million, almost 10 million per year. That's definitely on the higher end of the spectrum in terms of the running back pay scales. So I know Kenneth Walker is much younger, still on his rookie contract, but to know that Zach Charbonnet's in year 2, could be taking more touches away. I believe in the Houston Texans offense more than I believe in the Seahawks. Speaking of which, boy, I've gotten some hate in the comments for my Seahawks win-loss prediction. I gave him 5 wins, and that does feel a little bit low if, Geno can get it done. I do like their offensive coordinator a lot, coming from the University of Washington, former Huskies offensive coordinator Grubb. Ryan Grubb, or is it Brian Grubb? I forget. Is that B in his name? But they do have good receivers. I just don't trust their quarterback situation. If Walker was not in a committee, I would 100% value Walker well above Joe Mixon. I think Walker would be in the same tier as Kyron Williams. But I believe we're back in terms of the camera. There we go. Yeah. Sorry about that. But so far, our team is Drake London, Marvin Harrison, Xavier Worthy at receiver, going pretty young at the position. At quarterback, we have Josh Allen, Travis Kelce as our tight end. And at running back, we have Joe Mixon as our starter. Valid. Jonathan, it's Ryan. Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. You would know. You are a Seahawks fan. I will not get that wrong again. Ryan Grubb. Thanks for the clarification. Okay. We could go with Kyler if he does fall one more pick. That would open us up for the Harrison stack, but he goes off the board. Not ideal. And it would really be nice to have another wide receiver on this team, but we do get boxed out of the position. That's the thing about being at this point. But we do need running back pretty badly. And I'm not a fan of Antonio Gibson very much, so I think Ramondre Stevenson is a perfectly fine pick here. And Ferguson is interesting, but I don't think... I'm not going to be going with Prescott. I'm not going to need that stack. I'm going to avoid tight end. And I see in the comment section, yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable with Zamir White. And we did wait on running back for a while. Let's do it. The clear starter in his backfield, and did put up some really good numbers at the end of last season. So we'll go with your selection, your recommendation, Reflect the Sun. It's definitely a player I was considering at the top of the list. But Jonathan's about to get season tickets after 8 years on the waiting list. Wow. That that's a long time to be on the wait list. But I can see why. They've been a popular team, really good for a long time, and the Seahawks fans are diehards. So congrats, man. Happy you you made it on. It sounds like you're about to get them. It's not official just yet, but yeah, if you've been waiting 8 years, that's a long time to be waiting, man. Congrats. White did have some excellent games when Jacobs was out, and it's not like they have receivers that you're too like. It's not going to be a pass first offense all of a sudden. So I don't worry about Madison. I don't worry about Dylan Lobb. Yeah, we waited on running back long enough. We will take Zamir White. But okay. Would have loved to get Kyler Murray paired up with Marvin Harrison, but I'm glad I didn't reach on Trey McBride, because that team would have really needed the stack, and knowing that we get sniped. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier on in the video. Why having this elite quarterback for this team, especially one like Josh Allen that doesn't need to be stacked, gives you a lot of rushing touchdowns, really helps our build. We're going to be hammering wide receiver, I think, with these next. I think 3 out of the next 4 picks need to be wide receiver. But after our Zamir White selection, we see Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. I think I'd rather have Jalen Warren this year than Najee Harris. I think there's more upside with Warren, and especially in this best ball format, you're going to get more spike weeks out of Warren. Definitely the more explosive player. And with Arthur Smith coming into the mix, them not picking up Najee's 5th-year option, I could easily see them moving away from Najee, even more so than they were last year. Like the two of them were kind of back-to-back many weeks in my rankings, and I think Jalen Warren is definitely going to catch a lot more receptions. Russell Wilson checks it down like crazy. So I'd prefer Warren over Najee. I've not been taking much of Najee. I feel like Najee is one of my lowest exposure running backs so far this season. But then Jonathan Brooks, if he doesn't miss any time, he's a great pick. But even if he does miss like 3-4 weeks coming off of that ACL tear, I think he's perfectly fine. I think once he's healthy, once he's good to go, he's going to be a really good running back. Then Jake Ferguson, someone we considered but didn't grab, followed by Cortland Sutton. I thought about reaching on Sutton, but I don't think it's worth it in this tournament. There's going to be teams that get Sutton closer to pick 108 than teams that take him top 90. So that team can do it, but I'm not going to do it. Jordan Love, Brock Bowers, DeAndre Swift, Zach Moss, Dak Prescott, Raheem Mostert, Tony Pollard, James Conner, Tyler Lockett, Curtis Samuel, Trevor Lawrence. Reach on Trevor Lawrence. Interesting. This team is heavily invested in Jaguars. They got sniped on Evan Ingram, but they do have Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas. So I still think that's too high. Lawrence goes around like pick 122, and they took him 101. They could have definitely got him at 116. I think that was a reach. So I see Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel go off on this round. That's not ideal. I would have loved to have a stack, but we don't get it. And we need wide receiver. Receiver is definitely an important position for us, and it's going quickly in this draft. So I don't hate our start with London, Harrison, and Worthy, but if there's a position we need desperately, it is receiver. So that's going to be my focus here. I'm just going to be reaching on some players. And because we took 3 straight running backs, I'm going to just ignore that at this turn. I'm going to go with receiver. And I'm going to be ignoring these ADPs. It's just who I like the most. Yes, Dabs has the highest ADP, but I don't really care. This ADP, I think, is strictly tied to the Jordan Love stack combo, and we don't have Jordan Love on this team. It makes no sense for us to take Dobbs, in my opinion, given there's 4 Green Bay receivers that are really in line to produce. However, a player I am comfortable reaching on that I know is going to be a safe pick if he stays healthy is Josh Palmer. So I'm going to grab Josh Palmer. I know it's a bit of a reach, but I don't really give a shit. And then I think someone who is also more likely to have higher spike weeks is Rashid Shaheed. I'm going to grab Shaheed, who's clearly the number 2 in New Orleans and is the type of player that can give you an 80-yard touchdown any given week. So I don't love what we were just forced to do. I would have much rather taken some of the values at quarterback. However, Caleb doesn't correlate with any of our picks. I want to stack when I take Caleb Williams. We did not get lucky enough for Curtis Samuel to fall to us. Khalil Shakir was also sniped off the board, so we didn't get him. And we also don't have any Niners to justify a Purdy selection. So I am just going to take the receivers I think are the most valuable at this spot. I do love me some Brandon Cooks as well. If he's available coming back around, I'm going to be comfortable pulling the trigger on Cooks. But at this point in the draft, I think it's imperative that we narrow it down to running back and wide receiver because of those early investments in QB tight end. I'm definitely going to be taking another quarterback, another tight end later in this draft, but I think it's more important that we stick with the running back and wide receiver. I think our flex position is a little bit more important for this build. Cousins has an ADP of 138, who does line up with our Drake London selection. But we're going to be picking at 132, 33. It's a little bit of a reach. I just can't imagine Cousins falls to 156. So if we draft Kirk Cousins at the turn, we're going to be done at QB. I'd feel good about that. And then that could maybe open up the door for Darnell Mooney. But Mooney would have to fall to pick 156. That's 8 spots. And wide receiver has been really targeted in this draft. Could we justify a Darnell Mooney Kirk Cousins combo with our next pick? I think it depends on who's been taken at receiver. Because I told you about Brandon Cooks. He went off. And honestly, other than Jacoby Myers, I don't see another receiver that I'm like actually confident in producing week in, week out good usable fantasy numbers other than Darnell Mooney. Like now Jacoby Myers is off the board. I'm not a believer in Jerry Jeudy. I'm off that train. I've been a fan of his for too long and it's not worked out for me. So I'm not going to go Jerry Jeudy. Dontavian Wicks, if I had Jordan Love, I'd consider, but kind of the same logic with Romeo Doubs. His ADP is this high because of that Love stack, and without Love, I don't think I can justify it. I do like his upside, but there's just too many mouths to feed in that offense. And then Jahan Dotson fell off a cliff last year. We don't have Jaden Daniels to pair with, so I'm not going to justify that. Josh Downs, crowded offense with a run-first quarterback. I don't love that. Leggett, I'm not drafting any Panthers. I think we could have justified a Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford double tap, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. Jared Goff is falling a little bit, but this is not a team with any Lions, so I'm going to do it. I'm just going to make a consolidated bet on Atlanta. I need this team to have high viability, and having this Atlanta double stack. Betting against Kyle Pitts, also something I'm happy to do. I would love to get Darnell Mooney with our next selection, but given the premium on wide receiver in this draft, I really don't feel confident that he's actually going to make it to us. So I do think there's some players I'd rather take in a vacuum over Darnell Mooney, especially these running backs like Jerome Ford, Zach Charbonnet. I think head to head are better selections. But given how thin our receiver position was, here we are reaching on Darnell Mooney in order to get our Kirk Cousins stack. It is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section about that last decision. I could definitely see some hate, but I think the logic I just outlined for you is enough to justify it. I also think Mooney's going way too low in this ADP. Darnell Mooney is really being slept on because they gave him a sizable contract. They gave him $13 million per year, 3-year, $39 million contract. 26 is guaranteed. They are betting on Mooney for at least 2 years. He's 27 in the prime of his career, and he's had some really good, at least one really good season. I've been a Darnell Mooney fan for a few years now, and you can't tell me Mooney is not as safe of a pick as Quentin Johnston is. I'd much rather have Darnell Mooney than Quentin Johnston. Josh Downs, if I don't have Anthony Richardson, I can't justify. I'd rather have Darnell Mooney over Cole Kmet, way more crowded offense in Chicago. And then Rashad Bateman, someone reached fucking like 5 rounds on Rashad Bateman. I don't know what the fuck that's about. They do have Lamar, but I swear to you, Rashad Bateman's going to be available at pick 177 in a typical format. So that's much more egregious than my Mooney selection. But Jonathan thinks this is the year Pitts finally works out. I mean, you can go ahead and bet on it, but I'm not taking Pitts very much where he goes. Pitts went 59. I'd much rather have Evan Ingram, definitely a safer pick. I'd rather have George Kittle, and I view Jake Ferguson, even David Njoku, in the same tier as Kyle Pitts. Honestly, they're probably better picks, but at some point Pitts should work out. If he wasn't sniped, I might have taken him, but this is the only scenario where I want to take him. If I have London and I'm investing in Atlanta and I want to get that stack, maybe if I have Bijan, I'll consider taking him. But we have 5 picks before ours, and running back is important. A player I've been drafting a ton of in this round, in round 13, is Ty Chandler. I do worry tremendously about Aaron Jones' viability. Obviously, Chandler goes off right as I bring him up. So that's not good. But we have Joe Mixon, Ramondre, and Zamir. Maybe we look for Antonio Gibson. But running back is absolutely important for our build. Ben Sinnott goes. Okay, I'm definitely going to take Pat Freiermuth. For him to fall 14 picks, he's in line to maybe be the number 2 receiver in Pittsburgh. So we're going to bet on him. And then we kind of need running back. Okay, let me know if you want Algier, Antonio Gibson. We could also justify Ray Davis because we don't have any other Bills. But we could also go Roman Wilson. Get another Steelers player. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go Roman Wilson because we only started with 3 wide receivers through the first 8 rounds of this draft. I'm gonna be needy at that position, so we're making a bit of a bet that George Pickens isn't the only viable Steeler every single week. But now that we have 7, I'm not going to be too hard pressed to grab receivers the rest of the way. We're done at tight end with Travis Kelce, Pat Fryermuth. We're done at quarterback. We don't need more than 1 or 2 more receivers. So it's running back, wide receiver the rest of the way. And we have 4 more picks. At least 2 of those will be running backs, probably 3. But let's pull up the board, check the chat. Howard says if you're considering Mooney, you have to consider Pitts. I mean, the thing about Mooney is he's going 8 rounds later. He's going in round 13, whereas you have to take Kyle Pitts in round 5. Like, do I consider him? Barely, but if you're telling me 1 pick after Mark Andrews, you have to take Kyle Pitts, that's just not a pick I think is going to work out, man. Whereas the opportunity cost to draft Darnell Mooney, yes, we reached on him a little bit, but even in round 12, it's so much less punitive. There's so much less risk involved with Mooney. And the thing about Kyle Pitts that I don't like for fantasy is that he never scores touchdowns. He can't give you more than 3 touchdowns in a season. And last year, Arthur Smith was far more prone to send targets to the tight end position. Is this last year? Yeah, this is 2023. He played the entire year and scored 3 touchdowns, man. Like, that's just not enough. Tight end is a position that's so heavily weighted towards touchdowns. And there's only 1 game here where he goes over 57 yards. Like, his best game of the season was week 5 against Houston, 11 targets, 7 for 87. But again, didn't score a touchdown, barely gave you 12 points. Other than that, there's almost no games with over 50 yards. So you're hoping for him to get back to his rookie year where he put up over 1,000 yards. But even then, in his rookie season, he scored 1 touchdown. Like, I just can't justify a round 5 Kyle Pitts selection. Year 2, he missed some games and scored 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns in 10 games. So, but based on this track record, he's going to score more next year, but it's increasing by 1 each season. 4 feels like the max for touchdowns for Kyle Pitts. And the offensive coordinator's coming from the Sean McVay system. That's not an offense that favors the tight end position by a mile. So I'm going to read into the contract that they paid Darnell Mooney, $13 million per season. And as much as I like the Kyle Pitts talent, he's still very young. I could be proven wrong. I'm going to wait to actually see it for him to be a top 5 tight end for me to draft him as such, because he's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's going as tight end 6. Okay, tight end 6. I don't see it. I can't take him over Ingram. I can't take him over Kittle even. And I think he should be going in the same tier as Jake Ferguson, Brock Bowers, David Njoku. I'll take him over Goddard, but Goddard is going 5 rounds later. Yeah. I just can't talk myself into Kyle Pitts at that value. If I don't already have the stack that I'm trying to build, I just can't justify it, man. But if you like him, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. We did get boxed out of running back a little bit. Maybe that Roman Wilson selection was not the right move. But I kind of hate receiver at this point. There's almost no receivers that I actually like. We're not going to draft J.K. Dobbins. I'm not going to do that. But DeAndre Swift is a player that usually gets hurt. We might double tap the Chicago backfield here. Might do that. The only receiver I can kind of talk myself into is Demarcus Robinson at this point, but he's already been taken. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm definitely taking Roshan. I think Roshan is the RB2. As much as I like Khalil Herbert's talent, for some reason they seem to hate him there. Consistently bringing in other guys. But DeAndre Swift, other than last year, is a player that normally gets hurt. So there is a path for him to be viable. There's also a path for him to get traded. I'm going to go Khalil Herbert and hope that he gets traded. We're hoping that DeAndre Swift goes down. We passed on DeAndre Swift with our 8th round selection of Zamir White. We're going to double tap Chicago's handcuff RBs and hope for the best. But a lot of this team's success is hinging on the viability of Joe Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson, and Zamir White. If there's one position I don't care to be thin at, it's running back in this format, but it's maybe not the most ideal scenario. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Should we have really taken Roman Wilson at pick 157, or should we have gone with the players I was considering in that range? Ray Davis to pair up with Josh Allen. Jaleel McLaughlin, I think, is actually undervalued here in round 14. Tyler Algier. Unless Bijan goes down, I just don't think he's actually going to put up very good numbers. That offense is not one that usually uses 2 running backs, so he's truly just a handcuff, and that's the case for everyone. But then Antonio Gibson was our handcuff to Ramondre Stevenson. I'd rather just bet on Ramondre having a good year than needing to give myself the insurance of guaranteeing myself the Patriots running back. Like, that's not an offense I'm dying to invest heavily in. So for us to take Ramondre, I'd rather just follow the logic that Ramondre is going to have a very productive season, be a top 20 running back, play the entire year, and Antonio Gibson is just going to get the crumbs rather than they're going to be trading off week after week in terms of touchdowns. There's not going to be any touchdowns in that offense in the first place. So Gibson is an injury-prone player, one that probably going to steal a lot of receptions, but not one that I think scores many touchdowns. Has not been super viable the last few years. But the bet against DeAndre Swift is not terrible. I'm definitely taking another running back, though. And then we'll probably grab one last wide receiver. But we could take CEH, another Chief on this roster. We could grab Dameon Pierce as a handcuff to Joe Mixon. Maybe he gets traded. I doubt it. Estime just had a knee scope yesterday, so he's not the player I'm like most excited to draft. We could go Rondell Moore, another Atlanta investment. But definitely not taking Wandale or Tyrone. Maybe Tyrone at a value. But boy, I do not believe in the Giants this year at all. So not excited for that. I do love me some Isaac Garendo, honestly. I've spoken about Garendo on the channel before. I think he's more likely to profile as the handcuff to CMC than Elijah Mitchell is. It'll probably be more of a split backfield between the two, but if one of them's gonna if you told me Christian McCaffrey went down with injury, who separates themselves as the workhorse, I think it would be Isaac Garendo. But CEH goes off. Maybe this is a 7 running back build. Probably not. I don't think I'm going to take Dameon Pierce. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab Garendo as a hedge against Christian McCaffrey. And we're just going to load up on yet another Falcons receiver in Rondale Moore. That's our team. That is our team. Let's show it to you one more time. We had pick 12, and in round 1, we took Drake London, Marvin Harrison at the 1-2 turn. We followed that up with Josh Allen, Travis Kelce. At least some elite options at those 2 positions. Then we took Xavier Worthy, another Chiefs bet. Followed up with Joe Mixon for a correlation in Week 16. That Chiefs-Texans game hopefully puts us over the top in terms of scoring. Then we went double tap at running back with Ramondre Stevenson falling 5 picks. And then Zamir White at 85. We went with Josh Palmer, had to reach on him, but definitely a player I think is worthy of being reached on. He's going around pick 120, 123, and to take him at 108 I think is perfectly fine. Rashid Shaheed we grabbed at 109, some upside with him as the number 2 receiver in New Orleans. Definitely has some 20-point spike week potential. Then we went with Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney to heavily invest in our Falcons stack. We had Pat Freiermuth fall to us at a great value. I'm really happy with him as our number 2 tight end. And then we went Roman Wilson, another Steeler. Follow that up with Roshan Johnson, Khalil Herbert, a bet against DeAndre Swift, hoping for a little bit of luck in terms of a Swift injury or perhaps a Khalil Herbert trade. And then in the final 2 rounds, we took Isaac Garendo and Rondale Moore, another Falcons receiver, and Garendo as a bet, hoping he gets some playing time behind Christian McCaffrey. So that's my team. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Angelo says it's a decent team. Given we had pick 12 kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit, I think it's decent too. I think that Darnell Mooney selection is what keeps this team competitive, even though we had to reach on him by 15 picks. It worked out because we got Pat Freiermuth 15 picks after ADP. So it evened out. The luck was kind of on our side coming back around. But if there's one decision I think I may have wanted back, I think maybe our Roman Wilson selection. Instead, we maybe should have gone with Jaleel McLaughlin or Ray Davis. That's probably the only one I think I kind of want to have back. But otherwise, I feel really, really comfortable with who we took, given who was available to us. And I think we got some good values in certain spots. Like Ramondre, we got a decent value. Xavier Worthy, we got a good value. And especially Pat Freiermuth. That was probably our best value overall. So that's it for this draft. Wish me luck. Hopefully I can advance in this 12-team league. Maybe I'll stick around and just look over a few of the other squads in this draft, see like where I think I actually stack up as opposed to some of these teams. So let's pull up the draft one more time. Team 1, we didn't like their start with CMC Devon Achane. but they went Jalen Waddle, Hollywood Brown, Mahomes, Odunze, Jordan Addison, Raheem Mostert, Tony Pollard, Gabe Davis, T.J. Hawkinson, Quentin Johnston, Leggett, Bucky Irving, Will Levis, Johnny Smith, Kadarius Toney. Wow, Kadarius Toney. I don't see him off the board too often. Jatavian Sanders. Um, yeah, receivers a little scary. Decent value on Odunze and Addison, but I can't say I'm like in love with that team. Um, I don't love Devon Achane at the turn there. Team 2, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, Aaron Jones, Dak Prescott, James Conner, Tyjae Spears, Brandon Cooks, Zach Charbonnet. Good value on Charbonnet. Dalton Schultz, wow, Schultz at 146. That's kind of like our Fryermuth pick. Really good value at that pick. But Adam Thielen, Chuba Hubbard, Elijah Mitchell, Bryce Young, A.T. Perry. So quarterback is thin in that team, but receivers pretty good. Not bad. Not bad at all. Running back is thin, though. I'm not a fan of Aaron Jones as the RB1 at all. James Conner also misses time. Tyjae in a big committee. This team needs Charbonnet to pay off tremendously. So decent, but I probably would have gone running back a little earlier. That's just me. Team 3, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Laporta, T. Higgins. Not a bad start at all. Rashad White, Joe Burrow, JSN, Zach Moss, Tyler Lockett, Chase Brown, Eckler, Jerome Ford, Burton, Geno Smith, Gibson, Noah Fant, Daniel Jones, Darren Waller. This is a really good team. Team 3 is pretty stacked. They got both Bengals running backs. They have Rashad White. Ford at a really good value. A massive Bengals stack. Yeah. Team 3 is really good. Team 4, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Malik Neighbors, Jalen Hurts, Pacheco, Kamara, Ingram, Swift, Curtis Samuel, Romeo Dobbs, Tua, Jared Goff. I think if you knew you could get Jared Goff at 141, you probably wouldn't have taken Tua. I know there's a stack there with Tyreek Hill, but Tua always plays like shit at the end of the season, so not in love with it. A little too heavy on quarterback, but Rico Dowdle, Tyler Algier. Is Henry? No, Henry's not the RB1. Baker, a fourth quarterback. Holy shit. That's not wise. Wan'Dale Robinson is the 6th receiver on this team. It started off really good, had a lot of potential, but I think it's too thin at receiver. Not too worried about Team 4. Team 5 is Jefferson, Barkley, Pittman, Kirk. Not bad with Richardson stacked with Pittman. That's pretty good. Brian Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Brock Bowers, Lawrence, Singletary, Zeke. So a little thin at RB2, but not the end of the world. Josh Downs, good paired up with Richardson. Otherwise, I think he's going a little too high. Marshawn Lloyd, Jaleel McLaughlin, J.J. McCarthy, Tank Bigsby, Chico Conquo, Jelani Woods. Team 5 is pretty good. Team 6, Amon-Ra, Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, Josh Jacobs, Jaden Reed, George Kittle, Christian Watson, Jordan Love. Yes, a very good Packers stack with Jacobs, Reed, and Christian Watson. Then they have Trey Benson as their RB2. Love Trey Benson this season. Brock Purdy, Blake Corum, Kendry Miller, Ricky Pearsall, Musgrave, Corley, Juwan, Derek Carr, Estime. Tight end 1 being George Kittle. Yeah, this is a good team as well. Bijan, Olave, Devontae Smith, Trey McBride, Keenan, Kenneth Walker, Deontay Johnson, Cortland Sutton, Javonte, Caleb Williams. This team only has Keenan Allen stacked up. I mean, at least it's a little stack, but not the best. Jacoby Myers, Cole Kmet, Ty Chandler, Ray Davis. This team I'm not in love with. Not like crazy. Hate Chris Olave as the wide receiver 1, personally. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't like it. Team 8, Puka, Devontae, Kyron, Etienne, James Cook, McConkey, Rashee Rice, Ferguson, Mike Williams, Dallas Goedert, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Polk, Kimani Vidal, Michael Wilson, Demario Douglas, Tyrone Tracy, Will Shipley. Not bad. Receivers a little thin, but not bad at all. Team 9, Garrett Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Zay Flowers, Mari Cooper, Lamar, Chris Godwin, Dave Montgomery, Jonathan Brooks, Shakir, Gus Edwards, Rodgers, Bateman, Marvin Mims, Tyler Conklin, Likely, Foreman, Beckham, Colby Parkinson. That team's not bad. And then these last two, Brees Hall, Nico, Tank Dell, George Pickens, Andrews, Stroud, Jamison Williams, Jalen Warren, David Njoku, Brian Robinson, Jerry Jeudy, Dontavian Wicks, Jalen Wright. Okay. I think that's enough. I don't think my team is the best in this format, but I do think it can compete. I think it has a top 5 chance. It's definitely in the top half. We need to finish top 2. At pick 12, that's a little unlikely. I think I can compete. I wouldn't tell you I'm guaranteed to advance with my roster, knowing some of the other teams. I really love Team 5. I also think Team 6 is pretty loaded, as well as maybe 2 others. But my bet to win this 12-team bubble would probably be Team 5. But I don't think I'm the worst team here. I don't think I'm the best. I have a chance, though, and that's all I need. If that Falcon stack works out, we have some potential. But that's going to be it for me in this video, and I really appreciate you joining me for this live stream. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.